Hello, my friends. Let me share something very personal with you today. When you've lived past 50, you learn that money comes and goes, but trust, once it's broken, may never return. I thought I knew what true friendship was. I trusted a friend of mine with something precious, $10,000. I gave it with an open heart, believing our bond was stronger than any contract. But when the time came to return it, do you know what he said? Forget it. Well, I didn't forget, and neither did he, after what came next. Friendship means everything when you're older. By the time you reach my age, you've seen people come and go, but the ones who stay, the ones who've walked beside you through years of life, those feel unshakable. That's how I saw Tom. Tom and I had known each other for nearly 3 decades. We met at church, both of us newly widowed, both trying to find our way again. Over the years, we shared meals, holidays, even vacations with our families. He was the kind of friend you trusted with your house key, the kind you could call at midnight if your car broke down. So when Tom came to me one spring afternoon, his voice low and his eyes weary, asking for help, I didn't hesitate. He said his business had taken a turn, medical, bills, bad luck with the market, a string of things that left him desperate. Just a short-term loan, he promised, clasping my hands like a brother. I'll pay you back within a year. I swear it. I looked at him carefully. $10,000 wasn't a small sum. For me, it was part of my retirement cushion, money I had saved carefully to guard against hard times. But I also knew the weight of financial strain. I knew what it felt like to worry about bills and survival. And more than anything, I trusted him. You know, this is a lot for me, Tom, I said softly. He nodded eagerly. I know. And I wouldn't ask if it weren't life or death. You'll get it all back. You have my word. And because I believed his word meant something, I said yes. I remember writing the check, my hands trembling slightly as I filled in the amount. He thanked me over and over, tears welling in his eyes. You won't regret this, he said. For a while, I didn't. I watched him get back on his feet, or so it seemed. He still joined me for coffee, still laughed at our old stories. I assumed he was working hard to pay me back. But as months rolled into a year, the subject of the loan never came up. I waited, patient, telling myself friendship mattered more than money. Yet in quiet moments, when I balanced my checkbook, I felt the knot of worry tighten. Still, I believed, because that's what friends do. They trust. Little did I know that trust was about to be shattered in the most painful way possible. A year passed, then another. Life moved on, but the loan sat heavy in the back of my mind. I told myself Tom would bring it up when he was ready. After all, he was my friend, and friends keep their promises. But one afternoon, as I was going through my bills, reality hit. My savings weren't endless. Prices were rising. Retirement was more expensive than I'd planned, and that $10,000 would have made a real difference. So the next time Tom and I met for coffee, I decided to bring it up gently. The cafe was quiet, sunlight streaming through the windows, the clink of cups filling the silence. I stirred my drink, trying to steady my nerves. Tom, I began softly, do you remember that loan, the $10,000 I helped you with? He froze for a second, then forced a smile. Oh, that. Yes, I said carefully. It's been a while now. I was wondering if you've made progress. I could really use some of that back. I expected him to nod, to explain where he was financially, maybe even to apologize for the delay. What I didn't expect, what I could never have imagined, was what came next. He leaned back in his chair, chuckled, and said, Forget it. I blinked, certain I'd misheard. Excuse me? You heard me, he said, smirking. Forget it. That was years ago. We're friends, aren't we? You don't really expect me to pay you back, do you? His words sliced through me like a blade. I stared at him, my heart pounding, my hands trembling around the coffee cup. Tom, I whispered. That was $10,000. Money I worked my whole life to save. Of course I expect it back. But he only shrugged, his tone dismissive. It's just money. You'll be fine. Besides, I never asked you to give it if you couldn't afford to lose it. The betrayal in his voice was worse than if he had shouted. He wasn't just refusing to repay me, he was mocking the trust I had placed in him. I sat there in stunned silence, the weight of our years of friendship collapsing in an instant. Every holiday we'd shared, every prayer we'd said together, every memory, it all felt poisoned now by that smirk and those 2 words. Forget it. When I finally found my voice, it shook. I gave you that money because I trusted you, Tom. Because I believed in our friendship. He laughed again, waving his hand. Trust money? Friendship? It all gets messy when you mix them. Better to let it go. I walked out of that cafe with tears burning in my eyes, the world around me a blur, $10,000 gone. But more than that, A friendship I thought was unbreakable had been shattered in one careless moment. As I sat alone in my car, his words echoed in my mind. Forget it. No, I thought to myself, gripping the steering wheel. I won't forget, and I'll make sure he won't either. After that afternoon in the cafe, I couldn't sleep. I replayed his smirk, his laugh, those two words. Forget it. My chest tightened every time I thought about how easily he had dismissed not just my money, but my trust. For days, I wrestled with myself. Part of me wanted to let it go, to chalk it up as a painful lesson about mixing money with friendship. But every time I opened my checkbook, every time I tightened my belt to stretch my retirement funds, I remembered that he was living comfortably, going out, traveling, enjoying his life, all while pretending that $10,000 didn't exist. And I realized letting it go would mean telling him that his behavior was acceptable, and it wasn't. So I made a decision. If he thought he could forget, I would remind him in a way he wouldn't be able to ignore. The first step was gathering proof. I dug through my old records until I found the carbon copy of the check I'd written him. The date, the amount, his name written in my careful handwriting. It was all there. Then I printed out the texts he had sent me at the time, thanking me, promising to repay me within a year without fail. Looking at that folder of evidence, my hands shook. Not from fear, but from determination. Next, I reached out quietly to mutual acquaintances. Not to gossip, but to confirm what I already suspected. Tom wasn't broke anymore. His business had recovered. He was making money again. He simply chose not to honor his word. The betrayal burned hotter with each confirmation. Finally, I consulted a lawyer. I was nervous walking into that office, clutching my folder like a lifeline. But as I explained everything, the loan, the promise, the betrayal, my lawyer nodded calmly. You have a case, he said. This wasn't a gift. You have proof it was a loan. He may think you'll let it slide because of your friendship, but legally, he's still responsible. Hearing those words lifted a weight from my chest. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't petty. I was simply standing up for myself. Filing the paperwork felt both terrifying and liberating. I knew Tom would be shocked, maybe even furious, but I also knew he had forced my hand. When the notice was finally delivered to him, I got the call I had been waiting for. His voice on the other end of the line was no longer mocking, no longer smug. It was angry, shaken. "Why would you do this to me?" he demanded. I took a deep breath. "Because you told me to forget. But Tom, I can't forget, and I won't let you forget either. $10,000 may not mean much to you now, but it means a great deal to me. And so does my dignity." There was silence on the line. For the first time, he didn't have a quick comeback. As I hung up, I felt something I hadn't in weeks. Peace. Not because the money was guaranteed yet, but because I had reclaimed my voice. Tom had laughed at me, dismissed me, treated me like a fool, but now he would have to face the truth. Our friendship wasn't his shield anymore. He had wanted me to forget, but I had made sure he couldn't. The day we went to court, my stomach churned. I had never wanted it to come to this. I wasn't someone who liked drama or confrontation, but Tom had forced me into a corner, and now we were here, sitting on opposite sides of a wooden courtroom, waiting for the judge to begin. He wouldn't look at me at first. His lawyer sat beside him, whispering, shuffling papers. I could see the tension in his jaw, the flush creeping up his neck. Gone was the smug laugh from that cafe. In its place was something he could no longer hide: fear. When the judge called us forward, my lawyer presented the check copy, the text messages, and the timeline. Everything was laid out, neat and undeniable. I watched as the judge's brow furrowed as he flipped through the papers. "This clearly indicates a loan," the judge said firmly. "Mr. Harris, did you or did you not receive these funds?" Tom shifted in his seat, glancing around the courtroom like a trapped animal. Finally, he muttered, "Yes, I received it." "And did you agree to repay it within 1 year?" His voice was low, almost inaudible. "Yes." The judge leaned back, unimpressed. "Then why has this not been repaid?" Tom hesitated, then said something that made my heart ache and burn at the same time. "Because I thought she'd let it go. We were friends. I didn't think she'd press the issue." There it was, the truth spoken out loud. He hadn't forgotten. He had gambled that I would stay silent, that my kindness would keep me from standing up for myself. The judge's voice was sharp. "Friendship does not erase debt. This is a court of law, not of convenience." For the first time in all our years of knowing each other, I saw Tom's shoulders slump. The arrogance, the laughter, the dismissive shrug, all of it stripped away under the weight of accountability. When it was my turn to speak, I stood slowly, my knees trembling. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. I simply told the truth. "I lent Tom that money because I trusted him," I said. Because for 30 years, I believed our friendship meant something. But when he told me to forget it, he wasn't just talking about the money. He was telling me my trust, my sacrifice, didn't matter. And that I could not forget. The courtroom was silent. Even Tom wouldn't meet my eyes. The judge ruled in my favor, ordering Tom to repay the full amount with interest. As the gavel struck, I felt a strange mix of sorrow and relief. I hadn't wanted to humiliate him. I had only wanted what was right. Afterward, as we walked out of the courtroom, Tom finally looked at me. His eyes were no longer mocking. They were heavy with shame. "I never thought you'd take it this far," he muttered. I met his gaze, steady and unflinching. "And I never thought you'd betray me like this, but you left me no choice." He looked away, and for once, he had no clever reply. That day I walked out of the courthouse not just with justice, but with something even more important, my dignity intact. After the judge's gavel fell, I walked out of the courthouse with a strange heaviness in my chest. Yes, I had one. The papers in my hand said the money would come back to me with interest. Justice had been served. But the truth was, it didn't feel like a victory. I had lost something far more valuable than money. A friendship thought was unbreakable. That night, I sat at my kitchen table with a cup of tea, staring at the steam curling upward. I thought about the years Tom and I had spent as friends, the holidays we had shared, the times we'd prayed together, the laughter, the inside jokes. I thought about the trust I had put into him, the way I had written that check without hesitation because I believed his word was enough. And then I thought about that day at the cafe, the smirk, the laugh, those words that had cut so deep. Forget it. What do you do when someone you love as a friend shows you that they don't value you the same way? How do you reconcile the person you thought they were with the person they turned out to be? The answer, I realized, is that you don't. You let go. You grieve the friendship like a death, because in many ways it is one. But in that grief, you also find clarity. I realized that real friendship isn't about how many years you've known someone. It's not about dinners shared or vacations taken. It's about respect, about keeping your word, about treating someone's trust as the treasure it is. Tom had failed me in that, and I had allowed myself for a while to believe his dismissal defined me, that maybe I was foolish for giving, foolish for trusting. But standing in that courtroom, speaking my truth, I reclaimed something more valuable than the money. I reclaimed myself. In the weeks that followed, Tom tried to reach out a few times. Short calls, half-hearted attempts to smooth things over, but I couldn't answer. I didn't hate him. I didn't wish him harm. But I couldn't go back to who we were, because that trust could never be restored. Instead, I poured my energy into the friendships that remained true, the ones where a promise meant something, the ones where kindness wasn't mistaken for weakness. And to my surprise, I found myself surrounded by people who reminded me that loyalty still exists, that not everyone will laugh in the face of your generosity. $10,000 is a lot of money, but the lesson I learned was worth even more, because now I know when someone tells you to forget it, you don't have to forget. You can remember, you can stand up, and you can make sure they never forget either. In the end, this story was never just about $10,000. It was about respect, about trust, about learning that sometimes the people we believe in the most can let us down in the worst ways. My friend told me to forget it, but I couldn't, because forgetting would have meant erasing my own worth, erasing the value of my hard work and my trust. By standing up, I didn't just get my money back, I got my dignity back. And that is something no one can put a price on. So if you've ever been betrayed, remember this. You don't have to stay silent. You don't have to forget it. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is make sure they never forget. Like, share, and subscribe for more true stories from the heart.